Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, DTX, flew United Airlines first class over the holidays. That, in itself, might not be surprising. But then private school teacher Jean Marie Simon told the world that the congresswoman had been given her seat, one that she had upgraded using airline miles she had saved. Simon was then moved to Economy Plus. Naturally, Simon was upset, but Lee responded by saying that Simon's anger was obviously fueled by racism. Since this was not any fault of mine, the way the individual continued to act appeared to be, upon reflection, because I was an African American woman, seemingly an easy target, along with the African American flight attendant who was very, very nice. This saddens me, especially at this time of year, given all of the things we have to work on to help people. But in the spirit of the season and out of the sincerity of my heart, if it is perceived that I had anything to do with this, I am kind enough to simply say sorry. Simon was appalled that she would be accused of racism and said that race had nothing to do with it. She just wanted to go home, as she was on the last leg of a trip home from Guatemala. And then the story got even more interesting. Simon has traveled to Guatemala before, researching and taking photographs for her book titled Guatemala, Eternal Spring, Eternal Tyranny. The New York Times interviewed Simon in 2012 about her research for that book and her many subsequent trips to Guatemala. What we saw was the intense beginning of this resettlement, where they razed villages and rebuilt them in uniform, symmetrical huts, she said. And the civil patrols. That was Rios Montt's big thing. It's the most lasting thing a president of the 20th century gave Guatemala, because the effects are still being felt today. In later years, she prepared reports for international human rights groups and connected visitors with local advocates who were demanding answers from the military regime. It was a sinister time, when activists would be murdered alongside their infant children. She recalls meeting one woman who told her that she had been raped by soldiers every night for a month, sometimes in front of her father. When the commander decided that she was not a guerrilla, he gave her a bar of soap, 5 pounds of beans, and advice to start a new life. By the time her book was first published, she had decided to go to law school. She practiced for 10 years, then switched to teaching high school Spanish. Now living in Washington, she has returned often to Guatemala in recent years. But the icing on the cake, as reported by the Daily Caller, is that Simon also happens to be a registered Democrat.